don't think we can play this too much. The lady in Minneapolis, disabled woman on television, gave an interview to KSTP. I want everybody far and wide to hear her message.
And they went straight to Office Max, the dollar store, and every store over here that I go to. I have nowhere to go now. I have no way to get there because the buses aren't running. These people did this for no reason. It's not going to bring George back here. George is in a better place than we are. Last night, I'm going to be honest, I wish I was where George was because this is ridiculous. These people are tearing up our livelihood. This is the only place I could go to shop. And now I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have anywhere to get there.
This poor woman, and her voice, thankfully it played a lot over the weekend, and may her voice sort of resonate with anybody who wants to burn down a building or loot or steal items out of a store because they're ostensibly upset about the awful death of George Floyd in police custody in Minneapolis. Here is Dan. Hey, Dan, welcome to the Mike Gallagher Show. How are you today?
Hi, Mike. Yeah.
Hi.
Hey, as a former police officer for San Diego, you go through extensive training on how to protect people and what to do. They've got a really good program. And I don't know what the Minneapolis Police Department does, but usually it's you get the person cuffed if that's what's needed, and then into the patrol car or to, in some cases, to medical care. I don't know. We all don't know at this point, I guess, what George had on in his system. But there is a condition that's that hyperventilates a person. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the term. And there may be, this may have contributed to his death. And it seems like we're rushing to conclusions that this officer took his life. That may be, as horrible as that is, and shouldn't have happened, but
is it fair to say that is it fair to say, in your view, that the knee to the neck for 8 or 9 minutes may have contributed to his death?
It could have, right?
No.
That, again, policy, why the other officers didn't intervene and say, hey, we've got him under control, let's get him in the car or get him to medical
Makes no sense. This makes no sense.
At this point. But we need to have that investigated. We're not hearing enough of that.
Well, I mean, this is going to be one of the most thoroughly vetted investigations of a death of a citizen in police custody in human history. There's not going to be any cover up here. President Trump has ordered the Justice Department to be on this, the FBI. There's going to be scrutiny. You know, one of the obvious dilemmas was trying to get to a conclusion and an arrest quickly, but also getting it right. If they overcharge Derek Chauvin and they have an acquittal, I mean, believe me, this is going to be, it's going to happen all over again. What do you think? How do you think people are going to react? It'll be Rodney King on steroids. And yet there's even a debate about how quickly Derek Chauvin was arrested. Andy McCarthy is arguing that it took too long. The Wall Street Journal says it was absolutely prudent that it was actually pretty quick within a few days to charge a police officer with a crime like this. So, you know, I mean, here's Andy McCarthy over at National Review, and I respect Andy and like him a lot. He's been on this show many times. Why did it take so long to arrest Derek Chauvin, he asks. The claim that the prosecutor had to wait to authorize an arrest until the investigators nailed down all the evidence is nonsense. Under Minnesota law, third-degree murder occurs when a person without intent to affect the death of a person nevertheless causes death by an act that is imminently dangerous to others and evinces a depraved mind without regard for human life. The penalty is prison up to 25 years. Andy says this is probably the appropriate charge. It's always dicey to make assessments when we do not know what evidence investigators have. But second-degree murder must have been considered. That's a crime of passion type of homicide, not premeditated, but nonetheless intentional. And Andy says, obviously, I'm assuming first-degree murder and its potential life sentence were not on the table because there's no apparent proof of premeditation. Incidentally, Minnesota does not have capital punishment. But here's what Andy McCarthy writes. He goes, I believe Chauvin should have been arrested days ago, if not immediately. It's standard practice for police who witness a violent crime or who are reliably informed of facts that would support arrest for one to place a person in custody. That virtually never means the case is ready there and then to go to trial. So if Andy's arguing that he should have been arrested immediately, would that have reduced the violence we've seen? I don't think so. I don't think the violence and the looting and the rioting had anything to do with George Floyd's death. It just had to do with an opportunity to go attack cops and go attack property and burn buildings. Terry, you're on the Mike Gallagher Show. How you doing, Terry?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for your voice. You're always so great to listen to on a daily basis.
That's very nice.
Thank you. I'm just concerned that other people might take advantage of the situation, other like-minded people that look to do harm and take advantage of the situation. We need to put a stop to these looters and rioters. It's very dangerous for our country. We're in a vulnerable state right now, and we might even have some other countries try and fund some of these organizations. It's very dangerous.
Well, it is, and it is a scary time, and Americans are scared everywhere. I mean, there's a lot of fear right now, which is what terrorism is all about. The president said over the weekend that he wants Antifa designated a terrorist organization. This is about fear. The president talked at the Kennedy Space Center after the launch about how the memory of George Floyd is being dishonored and being smeared by the anarchists and the rioters and the looters. Here was the president.
The police officers involved in this incident have been fired from their jobs. One officer has already been arrested and charged with murder. State and federal authorities are carrying out an investigation to see what further charges may be warranted, including against, sadly, the other three. In addition, my administration has opened a civil rights investigation, and I have asked the Attorney General and the Justice Department to expedite it. I understand the pain that people are feeling. We support the right of peaceful protesters, and we hear their pleas. But what we are now seeing on the streets of our cities has nothing to do with justice or with peace. The memory of George Floyd is being dishonored by rioters, looters, and anarchists.
There was this big, huge debate all weekend in the Trump-hating media. Why isn't the president addressing the nation about this? What do you think that was? Do they think he only can address the nation from the Oval Office? Or can he address the nation from the Kennedy Space Center or anywhere else where he has got a microphone and cameras and a platform? He did address the nation, but they don't want to listen to him. How many times did you see that clip on the evening news? How many times did you see the president's message of compassion and support of memorializing George Floyd? How many times did you hear this clip where the president talked about the disgraceful way George Floyd was treated by this Minneapolis police officer and the other officers who stood around and watched? This is, I mean, if the media wasn't so corrupt, they'd play this clip pretty continually. I can promise you, if these words came out of President Obama's mouth, we'd be hearing it over and over and over again. But I'll bet you didn't hear this clip on the CBS Evening News.
The death of George Floyd on the streets of Minneapolis was a grave tragedy. It should never have happened. It has filled Americans all over the country with horror, anger, and grief. Yesterday, I spoke to George's family and expressed the sorrow of our entire nation for their loss. I stand before you as a friend and ally to every American seeking justice and peace. And I stand before you in firm opposition to anyone exploiting this tragedy to loot, rob, attack, and menace. Healing, not hatred, justice, not chaos, are the mission at hand.
Hey, Trump haters, is that a good message? Oh, he doesn't really mean it, right? So he's damned if he does, and he's damned if he doesn't. It doesn't matter what he says. It doesn't matter when he addresses the nation, they turn around, they say he didn't address the nation. It doesn't matter when he advances a message of healing and unity and compassion, they don't think he believes it. Doesn't matter. Their hatred, their hearts are so hard. They are so filled with rage and anger that it doesn't matter what the President of the United States says. I don't even want to touch this thing politically, but I'm going to give you an example of a Democrat mayor who literally blamed Trump for the riots and the looting. I know that won't surprise you, especially when you know it came out of New York City. This Mayor de Blasio's disgusting comments confirm what most people know already, that he is an utter, unmitigated disgrace. We'll share for you what de Blasio, the mayor of New York, had to say about the rioting and the looting happening in his city and around the country coming up.